Now that we're into tape 2, I want to recap a little bit of what we've covered to this point, remembering that we want to talk about the Luciferian codes. We also have to remember that in order to talk about the Luciferian codes and Lucifer himself, we have to paint a picture which creates a context wherein we can discuss that whole issue of the Luciferian codes. So we've been working on pushing out your vanishing point so that you can comprehend with greater understanding the actual massiveness of existence itself. So we've been talking about the circuitous nature of creation. So I kind of want to step back from this picture we've been painting in some detail and once again take a look at the big picture so that we can go back in and do some more detail work to help support what we've been saying from verses that people have traditionally held in a certain way that doesn't really take into consideration the whole aspect of circuitous existence. So once again, when you look at, for example, scriptures like Hebrews 1:11, where it says that God rolls up the heavens like he would roll up a cloak, we have in many places this whole teaching in the Bible that says that the universe will roll back up like a scroll. We also find in Revelation that God will make a new heavens and a new earth. And the existing heavens that we're in right now will end with fervent heat. And all of the elements will burn up and melt and go back into a compaction. So the scientists that we have repudiated from the religious world actually are right when they say there was a big bang and then the heavens stretched forth. And they've run their computers backwards and figured out that it's been 15 billion years. They're right. What they don't understand is that there's a circuitous nature to the universal constructions. That's where they don't understand it. But the Bible teaches, and we have put forward in Revelation 10, that there have been 7 thunders, 7 expanses called the alpha part of the cycle, and 7 omegas, which is the contraction part of the cycle, when things go back into a chaotic mass and everything is compacted, all matter is squashed into a massive star density, only to begin again, and we find in the Word of God, world without end. So in the sense that there are circuits and circles like the way electrons circle a nucleus of an atom, the way the sun rises and sets, the circuit of the sun, the lunar cycles of the moon, 12 lunar cycles creating the solar year, which is a circuit. And what I like to think about is in terms of the circuitry of creation is the summer, actually the spring, the summer, the fall. Then comes the winter, the time of fallowness, and then the cycle begins all over again. So all of existence speaks of the circuitous design that really transcends a whole concept of linear time. So when we read in Revelation 10 that time is no more, what that means is that when you look at things from the Alpha Omega cycle, there really isn't any time, since time never ends as it relates to the circles. They go on for forever and ever and ever and ever. Universes come, universes go, and universes are the womb in which God creates life forms all over the place. So what we're doing in bringing your attention to these things is to call your attention to the fact that existence is far greater than what we ever dreamed. And we're pushing out your vanishing point so that we can create a context for explaining the Luciferian codes. That being said, we have to remember that all of the Bible that we use needs to be in agreement with itself. You can't have a contradiction. And so when it comes to understanding time, most of the Western world is conditioned by the book of Genesis. And the book of Genesis has been translated in a way that kind of supports commencement of time and the ending of time. And for example, it says in most translations, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That suggests a commencement point in the term in the beginning. But in the Hebrew, the appropriate Hebrew translations, which we owe a great deal of thanksgiving and debt to the manifester, who has a brilliant mind in breaking down and helping us understand the original Hebrew. The proper rendering of that section of the scriptures should go something like this. From aforetime, manifold God had created the heavens and its matter. So you see right away, it sounds close, but it's not close at all. And so over the course of time, people that have conceptualized time within the context of their own lifespan, they live and they die, have imposed that bias of time into the scriptures and translated it in such a way that it doesn't sound like it coincides with the circuitous nature of God's creative design. And so we have a conflict with modern translations as it relates to the picture that we're painting. And I want to go into the book of Genesis in a little more detail and explain some things that have been mistranslations that have created a support to the bias that we impose. And so I want to go back into the book of Genesis and deal with some of these confusions or mistranslations that support a linear kind of thought process that is in contradiction to the picture that we're painting, so that we can see that the Bible in its proper translation actually supports the whole concept of alpha and omega cycles. Now, one of the things that people have believed for a long time in Western civilization, and as the Bible has been taught around the world, is that there are 7 24-hour days of creation. The first day, was they say, is a 24-hour day. It's kind of a spontaneous beginning to creation. But the book of Genesis does not teach that at all. And the reason that people have fallen into that trap of thinking is because, like I said before, they impose a bias on the translations, or the translators did, in relationship to their understanding of time. But actually, the Bible teaches the opposite. The Bible teaches this word day as the word yom. And we're going to talk about this word yom because it really makes no sense the way translators, modern translations, have used the word day in the Bible at all. But let's go back to the beginning there where it says in the beginning, because there is no direct article, the word the, in the Hebrew. It is more properly rendered as from aforetime, meaning that this is explaining not time, but a condition that existed before the entrance into the cycle that we're explaining. So Genesis is actually a snapshot of the alpha cycle. And so if we understand it from that beginning point, we'll do a lot better in seeing how this works with the whole idea of expansions and contractions, or alpha and omega cycles, compactions, thunders, expansions, and round you go without end, as we said before. Now, when you look at the word yom, it is also followed by the teaching and the evening and the morning. And this also is a bias, because when you look at the first day, or the first yom, we have a real problem there trying to understand the difference between the light that is mentioned there in the first day and the light that's mentioned in the fourth day. So what we're dealing with here in terms of this first day of creation is not physical light. This is talking about spiritual light, that when all things commenced at that particular point, not that it commenced time, but in the commencement of the explanation of this point in the cycle, spiritual light was introduced into the expanse, or the universal construction. It's not talking about the photon light of the sun, or physical light. That isn't introduced until the fourth day. So what we have here is the introduction of spiritual light into the cosmos, and the darkness did not comprehend it. Jesus also, and I mentioned it earlier, talked about light as waters, or energies. So the energies of spiritual light entered into the universal construction when it had not entered before. So God allowed that to happen. And then and that's called the first day. But actually the word evening and morning should be better rendered, more accurately rendered, as dawnings and settings, the dawnings and settings of the first yom, or the first age. Now we know that's true because there was no 24-hour day period until the fourth day. That's when we find that the lights are ignited, physical light is ignited, the sun is in operation, and we have the whole idea of common time, or earth time, introduced on the fourth day.